everybody. Scott Goldman and Tim Jackson with Independent in Time, independentintime.com. Our very first watch blog together, our very first watch podcast. We got some cool goodies to show you. I've got Tim's website up behind me. We're going to talk about Vianney Halter. We're going to talk about IWC. We're going to talk about Kudoke. We're going to talk about Speake-Marin, and we're going to show you some goodies. So, without further ado, hello, my friend.
Hi, Scott. Very nice to be here.
Nice to have you here with me.
Great.
As we often do on these watch blogs, the first things we talk about is what are we wearing? So I'm going to ignore mine for a sec because I promise you whatever Tim has on is much nicer than what I got on. So Tim, after you.
Well, today is this is a stainless steel sort of daily beater, if you will.
Daily beater.
I know that term is depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah,
what a beater is.
My G-Shock is my beater. So
right.
Yeah.
I try not to beat it, but it's daily wear. So this is a Kudoke 1. It's a stainless steel watch. It's a manual wind, and I'll take it off. We've got a camera set up here that Scott has arranged, so you can get a closer picture. So this is the watch right here. You can see it there.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
So stainless steel case, beautiful silver dial, and there's very subtle Romans, which if you look very closely, you can see there's a 12 right there, and a 3 right here, 6, and down there's a 9. I love Roman numerals, and this watch it spoke to me when I first saw it, because up until seeing the prototype of this watch in Basel in 2018, most of Stefan's production was hand skeletonized watches, meaning he took the main plate, the bridges, and he would drill a hole and put a jeweler's saw blade and then cut out the skeletonization, and that's what he was known for, and he did beautiful work.
Which is really actually quite delicate stuff, right? Because it shows the prowess of this watchmaker and his ability to remove all the metal that is really kind of not necessary. And of course, when you remove metal from a bridge or something, it just makes it weaker. So you have to really kind of know what you're doing, I guess.
Yeah, so you have to make sure that it still, has the structural integrity to work like a watch. And that, while these are beautiful watches, I hadn't ever really been asked by any clients for skeleton watches. So I hadn't bought any watches, but I knew him well, and his wife worked with Marco Lang. So I'd see him in Basel World and always make a point to go and see him. And then this year in 2018 was the year we met for a coffee. He actually wasn't exhibiting, but we met for a coffee, and he showed me the prototype of this watch. And I was like, wow, that's a great looking watch. That's a watch that I think people would want to buy. So I quickly agreed, and asked him, what can I buy? Do you have these available? He said, sure. I've got, I sold a couple to my retailer in Hong Kong.
So you only had the one?
Yeah, just one
prototype. Distributor.
No, I think he was working with a couple of people around the world, but not many.
Okay.
But a lot of his skeleton watches were going to the Far East because they really appreciated them. And but seeing this watch in a prototype, I was like, I'm in. Let's get some of these watches.
And it's only 7 years.
Yeah.
So the guy has gone from essentially ground floor to penthouse in 7 years. Is my understanding you can't get these watches?
No, that's not true. I wouldn't. No, you can get them. They're just, they don't make a ton of them compared to the marketed brands.
Sure.
Their annual production might be at about 300 watches, but they've got.
Are they made to order?
The majority of them are made to order to specific retailers and to direct clients who don't have retailers in their area. I keep a small stock of these watches. I own this watch myself. Obviously, that can be shown. I actually have.
Full disclosure: everything we're seeing today is from your personal.
Yeah, these are all my personal watches. These watches here that they're not for sale.
Okay.
But I do, I stock a couple of these watches. I actually have the same watch in stock, a brand new one. I also have a K2, which was his second watch. But the other thing about this watch, which is lovely, and I'll just show you because. We go around and look at the back. This is a beautifully finished manual wind movement with a lot of classic elements of fine watchmaking from a long time ago. What a lot of people may know, but many people I don't think know, is that the German tradition or the Saxon tradition, which is where Stefan and his wife Eve are based, that area of Germany, Dresden being the old capital of that area, is very up on the arts and sciences of watchmaking, of scientific discovery, and the rulers of that region were very keen to promote that and support it. So what you have when the watchmaking started back then, I mean, the person everybody knows is Lange, Ferdinand Adolf Lange, and he had the support of the ruler at the time. And what they did was they often used techniques that they borrowed from other places, and they loved the English watchmaking from the period of the early, what would it be, the 18th century. And so the frosting, that type of English frosting, which you see on this watch, that's quite common in German watchmaking.
You mean the blaging,
I'm talking about this frosting around on the main plates.
Well, I call tremblage for some reason, but you think it's very fine.
It's a fine frosting. Tremblage, I mean, there's different words. That's a French word. I'm using the English word because frosting.
Well, you're British.
Yeah. The other thing that's nice, so this actually is directly...
Get out of the way here. Get us out. Go ahead.
Yeah, so right here we have this is where the balance is, the balance wheel. And this bridge right here, or actually it's called a balance cock, is hand engraved. And that is almost a direct, it's certainly inspired, and you could say a copy, but it's inspired by old English paired case clocks, pocket watches.
And also, I mean, not to be silly, but it seems to me that this is also a Long and Sona tradition. So again, back to the Saxony way of doing things.
Yeah.
This highly decorated balance cock.
Yeah, exactly. The hand engraving, and that was traditionally English way before, and the Germans in Saxony adopted it, and it looks beautiful.
It's fantastic, and it's interesting because if you own enough Lange watches, which we know a couple of people who do, you can actually begin to see who actually did the carving on the balance cock.
Well, yeah, absolutely. If you go to Lange and you ask them, they know. They can tell by the style of the engraving on the balance cock who actually did it.
It's insane because a lot of these people are they're like third and fourth generation artisans. Look at that. It's just
so the other thing to point out is Stefan does this by hand. The anglage or the beveling, if you will, so that goes around here. That's all done by hand. It's difficult to see in this camera if it's good enough to capture that.
We can see it, but if you hold it at a little bit of an angle, you can see really the depth of it. There you go.
Yeah.
And I love the snailing of the barrel.
Yep.
He really did a fantastic job. And again, because I haven't seen a lot of his watches, and look at what number this is that Tim has. Obviously, it's...
Well, that was a surprise. I mean, I asked him because as I said, he'd sold 2 of these. Pre-sold them to his Hong Kong retailer, and so I said, any chance I can get an early number? I said, I assume you've sold number 1. He said, well, actually, no, I haven't. And I thought, bingo, sold.
Mine.
Yeah, I'm not going to let that one go.
Yeah, good.
Of course, they took number 8, and I think they took 7 or 9 as well. So that's how I ended up with this watch. I'm fortunate. I have relationships with these watchmakers where I'm in the right place at the right time, as I say, and that's how I ended up with this one.
Let me just stop you, because if people don't know, this is the guy who brings the independence to us.
Doing it for a while.
Because I know when you were up north, you had a store with we'll just call them the super band brands, the high ends, the ones that are making 800,000 watches a year. These sorts of the Omegas, the other high-end pieces you were carrying. And then you told me the story. One day you showed up at the Basel Fair and there was this building off to the right and you walked in there and that was the end of it.
Well, the beginning.
Oh, the beginning of the end.
Right.
Or the end of the beginning. I don't care however you want to say it, but that palace building just sucked you in. And
well, actually, technically, it was before that. It was when I first
Which is a hut, right? It's like a...
The palace was a hut. So this was when I first came across the independence would have been in 2001. So second year I was in Basel, and I was running between meetings. And, I actually, out of the corner of my eye, saw for me, one of the sort of the ultimate watches, probably in my top 5 watches of all time, the Vianney Halter Antica Perpetual in rose gold, and it was sitting in a little vitrine window at the AHCI stand. And there was Vianney happened to be standing close by, and as I was dashing between meetings, I caught my eye. I was like, "Holy shit! I got to go and look at that."
Yeah.
And anyway, I digress.
But you don't. You have to digress. It's a watch podcast, so we always digress.
So that was it. I walked over, I looked in the window, and I'd only seen a picture of this in probably WatchTime magazine, the image of that watch, and I was like, "Can I see that watch?" And Vianney back then, as he, his English wasn't great. He's a native French speaker from Paris. And he said, a bit of course, and he digs out the watch, and he hands it to me, and I'm looking at this watch, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm holding this incredible watch. Knowing what I know now, I didn't appreciate it to the extent that I absolutely do now. I just looked at it and thought, that's crazy. It's got 4 different dials, and wow. And then I said, well, thanks very much, handed it back to him, and dashed off to the meeting. And that stuck in my mind, and it went from there.
I love this because what happened was a little seed got planted, and you weren't even aware of it, and somewhere your brain and your heart watered it, and you probably stayed up all night thinking about what you'd seen.
Yeah, I was, Baselworld was it was just overdose of watches. It was insane, and I had back meetings with these major brands that we carried, and it was sort of IWC, Blancpain, Glashütte, Vacheron, blah blah. This was it was crazy, but I did take a couple of crappy pictures on it wasn't even a digital.
It was
camera.
A flip phone at the time, maybe.
No, it wasn't even. I didn't. It wasn't on a phone. It was actually a camera that had. It was digital, but it was not a DSLR camera. It was
gotcha.
One of the early. So not a great picture, but it was there, and that was where we went. But that was the seed, and then the following year, it was I got connected with Speake-Marin.
Which I want to talk about. Don't run ahead too far. What's Scott wearing today? Scott's wearing his Omega, his Swatch moon watch, his Swatch moon whatever. I already got the eye roll because I'm wearing a quartz watch today. I just tell everybody it's not quartz. It's just it's a jump minute, a jump second. It's jumping. It's a jump second.
Yeah,
right. And of course, let's just look at the actual back. Oh, look at that! It's fancy.
Plastic.
It's enough of that.
It's a throwaway watch.
Hey,
right? I mean, you could. I guess you could put a new battery.
It's my beater.
Yeah.
That's a true beater.
Yep. That is a.
I did not bring my Submariner down today. I didn't want to show you up with my fancy Rolex Sub. Okay, so we got lots of watches to talk about today. Tim brought some goodies.
Yep.
Let me just bring up a little history for us on this first guy we're going to talk about. We'll talk about, let's do Speake first. Let's do Peter first.
Well, yeah, that's probably a good way, a good place to start because.
So I'm going to get us out of the way and just a little bit of history on Peter.
Okay.
He started in 2002, and it's actually when I met Tim. I'll put us back on here. I met Tim at Jeff Kingston.
Yeah, it was a Jeff Kingston / WatchTime event in LA.
And so Jeff Kingston, if you couldn't get to Switzerland, he would bring the Basel Fair to you. He'd go with and shoot a bunch of shots, and he was actually really gracious, I thought, the way he would allow a bunch of us to actually go to a fair we hadn't been to. They'd get a big room at, say, the Riviera Country Club. Mm-hmm. They'd invite vendors down. Tim was one of Peter's champions, and my father and I walked up to the table, and my father was floored. And I think you had 2 watches. So take it away from there. We'll just, I'll take him off, and we'll just talk a little bit about him.
So that's Peter, Peter Speake, as he is. I came across Peter, or rather his watch, not him, almost certainly on the Purists. Yeah, it would have been the Purist website.
So on Purist Pro,
what's it now? Yeah,
WatchPro
now.
.com, right?
This was in the early days, long before social media and long before majority of these guys had any even websites. Although Peter did have a website, but I came across a posting, so it had a couple of images and a write-up by an enthusiast on the Purist website, This was a forum where watch crazy, watch nerds, watch addicts, watch collectors would gather online, if you will, to discuss their excitement about mechanical watches. All across the board. They're big brands. This particular, the Purists had a small forum, an area for talking about independence. And so I was just scrolling through. I would look at, back then I was a Ulysse Nardin dealer, Blancpain, IWC, blah, blah, blah. And I came across, I checked onto this independent forum, and I saw a picture of the original Piccadilly. This is a 38 millimeter cased watch, stainless steel, and it had, to my mind, my sensibility, an exquisite enamel dial. And people refer to enamel as grand feu, which is the French term. It's heated in a kiln. So it's essentially glass that is powdered, applied to the disc, and then put in a kiln and fired several times to create this permanent, beautiful, typically white dial.
And it doesn't fade.
Correct. It'll last. It'll remain like that forever.
Which is an amazing idea because it's
permanent.
It's our teeth, you know. I mean, this enamel process, and forgive me because I'm just going to throw this out there. It seems like the old artisans, the only way you could paint enamel, and we'll get that in front of the camera in a sec, is you needed to use the wing of a fly. You would literally dip. Well, that's
for paint. That's for doing the fine detail in terms of the numerals. The white, the background, the white is a powder that they basically shake almost like with a caster sugar shaker for baking. And they have to get a pretty even layer. But yeah, absolutely. So the numerals would traditionally be oftentimes hand painted, and those you required incredible dexterity and very, very fine motor skills. This is very few people on the planet could ever do this stuff. Pocket watches from the 1890s, 1900s often have these good quality pocket watches are found with beautiful enamel dials. And the permanency of these dials was what attracted me to enamel. To find a watchmaker, essentially a no-name watchmaker who was using an enamel in his entry-level watch, I thought was extraordinary, because at that point, typically the big brands, Patek, Vacheron, would reserve an enamel dial for a minute repeater or tourbillon, because it was a very high-end quality, rare watch, and so they just didn't put typically enamel dials on their regular watches.
And to go along with that, it's why they feel compelled to put their more complicated pieces in more noble metals, it seems to me. Well, I wouldn't pay $150,000 for a watch made in stainless steel, but I would in gold or platinum or red gold. And it seems to me that there's really, from my understanding, there's only one maker who really doesn't give a crap, and his name is F.P. Journe. So he's going to release his minute repeater in stainless steel because he says stainless steel is the best metal for minute repeater. He's not going to worry about the fact that people won't spend that kind of money unless it's
and I'm not. I think I would disagree slightly, because there are collectors that don't care about precious metals at whatever level.
I absolutely. I'm not. I wouldn't. Absolutely, and I would agree with you, because I've seen Patek Philippe watches in stainless steel. It's like the only 5270 in stainless steel, because it went an only watch and it was $4 million. So you're right. When companies typically will only use noble metals to make their watches, and then they release one in stainless steel, and it's a one-off, they're going to enjoy a lot of money. Let's look at this, Peter, Speake-Marin.
So this is my watch right here. I've had this actually since 2005. And so this is the dial I'm talking about. So this is an enamel or grand feu enamel dial. So it's white with these wonderful elongated Roman numerals. Now, just to be clear, Peter didn't make the dial. The watch industry has traditionally been a collaborative effort, if you will, where certain people have certain skills, and the marketing guy, if you will, would get his name on the dial. And he would go out and sell it. So you have dial makers, you have case makers, you have pinion makers, you have people that just spend their time making hands. So that what's fascinating about the sort of artisanal independent watchmakers is they are attempting and at some times doing it all themselves, which is really rare. In this case, Peter makes his hands. The case was made by a specific case maker to his specs. Obviously, this is nobody else has a case like this. But the dial specifically, which is what attracted me to his watches initially, is an enamel Grand Fou dial, and it was made by Donce Cadran, which is a Swiss company now owned by Ulysse Nardin. And they are responsible for a lot of the enamel dials across the board within the big watch brands and also the small artisanal.
And to your point that you made before, it seems like, especially in this world, there are a number of, I'll call them third-party producers,
right,
who are making the dials. If we look back at the tradition of a George Daniels or a Roger Smith, they're doing everything in-house, typically speaking. There are some things that we know that are very difficult to achieve, hairsprings, for example,
right,
just as a small example.
Right.
But an enamel dial being taken on by the watchmaker, how are they doing it now, just out of curiosity? Are they doing the enamel dials in-house, or are they still going out to this French firm?
I'm not sure what Speake-Marin's doing today, but when they do an enamel dial, I imagine that, yes, they're not making it themselves.
They're not. There's
very, very few people that do that. I'm trying to think if I know anybody that does. I'd be hard pressed to come up with a watchmaker that's doing an enamel dial.
Well, I mean, I think to that point, I mean, I think we've seen all kinds of independents, like Kari Voutilainen buys his own dial making factory.
Yeah.
Because his work is so artisan, and there's only so much room in his house for a 300-year-old rose turning engine. So he's really understands why he needed to buy a third party company.
Well, right, because his expertise, he's mastered all these different ways of making dials cases. He can do it himself. He's done it, but at the same time, it doesn't make sense financially for him to sit there and do the whole thing, because the watches would be astronomically priced.
Right. I mean, we've got a Josh Shapiro who's turning the dials in his own place.
Yeah.
But as certain people that you and I both know, we won't mention names, we love Josh's work, but Josh is not an actual watchmaker. He's a dial turner who's hired some watchmakers, and that's sort of put some people off that.
I mean, Josh is doing exquisite work.
Exquisite work, especially here on shore, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Can we see the back of this baby? Let me get us off of here.
So we can. Let's just.
And this is an in-house movement, or this was a modified?
So this is a modified. He calls it a hybrid movement. If we can get it to sit like that.
Yeah, that looks good.
You can see that. So this is the Piccadilly. This was the name for his initial design of a watch. It's 38 millimeters. Piccadilly is the area in London where Peter worked when he left watchmaking school in Switzerland, and he worked for George Somlo Antiques that does a lot of restoration in London on some exquisite old watches, and that's where he sort of fine-tuned his skills, his understanding, which I always say is fundamental to watchmakers, is that to have a period of time, 5, 7, 8, 10 years, let's say, working in restoration is key. Because why do I say that? Well, when you look at the old watches, pocket watches, early wrist watches from the great storied brands, Patek, Vacheron, AP, let's say, that have been around a long time, longer, you understand when you work on these old watches, you get to see the materials that they use and how they've lasted for 60, 70, 80 years.
It's unbelievable, and any real watchmaker, you and I know a lot of them, will tell you got to cut your teeth restoring old watches.
Yeah, because when you do that, you get to see, as I say, you get to see the metal, and in watchmaking, there's it's a blend of all sorts of disciplines, but one of them is material sciences, and obviously today we have newfangled materials that watchmakers have been playing with, if you will, and
it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
You need to be a metallurgist. You need to be an engineer. You need to be a mathematician. You need to
physicist.
You need to be a physicist. You need to have a steady hand.
Yep.
You need to have good eyes. I mean, you have to be able to put yourself in a meditative state to get that third wheel down in there. So I get that it's a drag to be a watchmaker and it's also an exciting, unbelievable undertaking. And just this rotor.
Yeah.
The rotor is fantastic on this thing.
So going back, you had an earlier question about the movement. So the movement starts out life as an ETA 2824,
which is a very robust, very popular movement that a lot of companies will buy and then modify.
Yeah, and the reason Peter used it was, in his words, he calls it a tractor motor. This is it's tried and tested. I believe it's originally was a Longines developed, designed automatic movement. So it has a big balance wheel. It has a lot of torque, and he disliked it. So what he did is he actually, if I zoom in a bit, so this is the main bridge, which he's obviously taken the self-winding bridge and completely thrown that away and created his own. So the jewels are in there. And let's go like this. Get that.
Fantastic. Okay.
A little bit of reflection, but the jewels are set in there. And what he's done is the rotor. This is his own rotor, obviously, and this is in the shape of what's called a topping tool, which is a old watchmaking tool for cutting teeth in wheels. And he just liked that style, so this has sort of became the Speake-Marin logo, if you will. But what I love about this is the amount. These branches have all been hand beveled, so the anglage on those, again, I don't know if it shows in the.
It does.
You
can see it.
It's exquisite, and
it's a platinum watch.
Yeah,
so it's beefy. It's weight.
Well, yeah. So the original was stainless steel. I looked, that was what I saw. Beautiful blue steel hands, and I was like, wow, that's a great looking watch. It reminds me of old pocket watches or grandfather clock. Who is this guy? Yeah. And that prompted me to do a little bit of a I don't even know if it was a Google search. Probably wasn't. Would have been one of the other search engines. Anyway, I found his fledgling website, and on it was a picture of this watch. And I thought, wow, okay. And so I reached out via an email sort of contact page to Peter, and I said, hey, normally I'd send you a formal letter of introduction from my store. I have a store here in Silicon Valley in California. Do you sell your watches? How can I get your watches? I'd be interested in talking to you. Thanks very much, Tim Jackson, and just signed it off. And it was late at night, 11 o'clock or something. The following day, I got an email back from Peter, very polite, just saying, thanks very much for your interest. We're in discussions with a potential distributor. I'll let him know that you're interested. Thanks very much, Peter Speake-Marin. Boom, that was it. And I was like, okay, fair enough. Sort of forgot about it and dashed off. This was in October. And then, continued on with the regular day-to-day life of running a jewelry store.
You just moved on.
Well, yeah, I just thought, okay, if the distributor is going to, he's notified now that I'm interested, ideally he'll reach out. Two things that are funny about that now. The reality is that he was probably making 25 to 30 watches a year, maybe, back then. So a distributor didn't make any sense in the bigger picture. But, that he was just getting going, and I think he'd been given some advice that that's probably what you have to have for the US market. Anyway, fast forward till December, busy Saturday afternoon, and the phone rings, and somebody says, hey, Daniela Speake-Marin's on the phone. And I was like, oh yeah, that must be Peter's, better half or something. And so I was like, okay, grab the phone. And she said, this is Daniela. We've done some research. We've heard good things about your shop, and we'd like to meet you. Do you go to Basel? So this was in 2002. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I've been there the last couple of years, and I'll be going. It's great. She says, great. Well, Peter and I'd like to meet you. So we set up, loosely set up a meeting, agreed to meet. And so the following March, when Basel World occurred, I went in between the crazy meetings of the big brands to go and meet Peter and Daniela. And that was where I ordered the first 5 watches. And it went from there. What's funny is before I signed the purchase agreement, I looked at Peter and said, what happens if I can't sell any of these watches? With the big brands, you get time to pay for them, terms. They will, if you can't sell a particular watch model, they'll exchange it back. And this was essentially a no-name guy. Nobody ever heard of him, or very few had. And so I just wanted to have that question. Also, in fact, because we were paying up front for the watches, it was a big commitment. It was some in the region of $50,000.
Oh, okay.
So I just wanted to have that conversation up front, not after the fact.
Sure.
So he said, fair enough, fair question. He said, I've actually sold 3 watches into the Northern California region to collectors who found me online. Don't know how they found me, but they did. He said, so I'm pretty sure you will have a potentially good market there. And I was thinking, it's Silicon Valley, people are pretty forward-looking. So
Now you have a few bucks too in Silicon Valley. So.
Yeah. So I said, he said, but fair enough. He said, here's what I'll do. He said, if any of these models don't sell, absolutely, we'll exchange it. I'll give you a model that you can sell.
Oh, okay.
So I said, fine, fair enough. Signed the purchase order and dashed off to the next meeting. So that was March. The watches, they were there. 3 of the watches that I saw were there. They just weren't finished to the level that he was comfortable with, and he had to make 2 other watches for the order. There were 3 gold serial number 1 watches. He's actually, now knowing Peter, he's quite a clever marketing guy in a way that he had some exciting watches for a collector to have, serial number 1. So the watches were put together when the order was ready. Was August that year, and I knew from FedEx when the watches were going to show up. I was tracking them, and I guess I'd done a good enough job with my collector clients to say, hey, I met this real living watchmaker. I've ordered some watches, you might like them. So they were intrigued enough, and so I had 5 guys sitting in a shop when the FedEx box arrived, and they were like sitting there waiting and excited, and I was excited. So I took the big box in the back, opened it just to make sure the watches were okay, and they were what I thought they were. One of them was a red gold, like this watch, but red gold case. I looked at that, serial number 1, that's going in the safe. I'll never get a chance to get another serial number 1. And so I walked out with 4 watches, 2 gold watches, 2 steel watches. And it was like, I wouldn't say a feeding frenzy. This is a bit more civilized than that. But it was 2 hours.
I've seen some of your clients. I don't think it was that civilized.
It was 2 hours of watch appreciation, and at the end of that, 3 of the watches were sold. And
incredible.
We had 1 steel watch that was a slightly. So it had enamel, but it had a cream enamel, so a slight ecru color, off-white with Arabic numbers, and it had a red gold crown. That was sort of a nod to traditional watches and pocket watches in England that were sometimes made with a silver case but had a gold crown to denote that they were a high-grade watch.
Oh.
But anyway, packing the shop up that night, I looked at my colleagues and was like, it's funny, that conversation I had with Peter back in March at Basel about what happens if I can't sell these watches. Now I'm like, how do I get more?
Hey, you don't have enough.
Yeah, right.
Well, listen, it's a good problem to have. A couple things I just want to point out. Tell me about the design of this hand.
To me, he refers to it as like a sort of spade hand.
It's a spade hand.
Yeah, it's quite reminiscent of sort of traditional, grandfather clocks. I think.
But when I walk around the Piccadilly Circus, I also see that the clocks on the tower, they have this.
Yeah. It's stylized, and it's Peter's version of that.
I love it. And just tell me the screw.
Yeah, so the screw,
it's
which right
obscured
now
by the minute hand right now, but you'll see in a second.
You can just see it.
Yeah.
So that's sitting there in the enamel dial. It is purely aesthetic. There was no reason for it other than the fact that in the old days, they actually did use screws to hold dials in place.
Right, so the dial was mounted to the top plate.
Yep.
And he's just doing it as just like, hey, look, I'm just kind of living to the...
Well, it's a nod to traditional watchmaking,
right.
But there's also aesthetically, and this is one of the things I love about Peter and a lot of these watchmakers, is they're not only mechanical geniuses and understanding the physics and math, as we've talked about, of the movement, but aesthetically, and it's kind of an important point, aesthetically, they have a style and a taste that appeals. Now, in the watch business as a whole, and the big brands are great, they produce some fantastic products, but it's a collaborative effort. And what I found compelling about Peter initially, Vianney, and Marco Lang is that these guys have both sides of the brain, if you will. So there's the aesthetic taste, which is maybe a left brain, and again, I'm making the brain side wrong. And they also have the right side of the brain, which is the mechanical aptitude and the understanding.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right.
So rare, really rare, is it that a watchmaker has both. I mean, in the big brands, they have brilliant watchmakers who work solely on the mechanics.
Oh, it's super rare.
Yeah.
Because it's usually somebody who's, there's nepotism. It's third generation stuff.
Well, yeah, or it's their focus and is brilliant and they can do the mechanics. Or you have somebody that's very skilled, and here's an example: the enameling on that dial is done by probably third generation, fourth generation artisans.
I'm going to point at this dial is all enamel. So let's move on. Let's talk about McGonigle.
Okay.
Let me bring the McGonigle stuff up here.
Who are the McGonigles?
Who are they?
Yeah.
You tell me.
Well,
they're brothers, John and Stefan. We know that.
Stephen.
Oh, Stephen?
Yeah.
What? Well, there's no V.
PH.
Yeah, Stefan, I thought.
No.
No, he wants to be Stephen?
Stephen.
Okay. But he doesn't want to be called Steve.
No, he's Stephen McGonigle.
Okay.
And John. So actually it's a perfect segue because I met them through Peter Speake. I did an event in Silicon Valley in 2006 called Watch History in the Making. And I invited Peter, Marco, Vianney to come to California, to Silicon Valley, to show and to meet collectors and to show what they do. I thought that was going to be a really important thing. Peter was great. They all were like, yeah, this sounds great. And then Peter said to me one day, it was right after Basel, he said, I've got a couple of friends of mine who I think would add to your event. Their names are John and Stephen McGonigle, and they make fantastic watches. And I was like, hey, that's great. I've never heard of them. He said, well, this is what they're doing. They're working on this, and this is who they are. So I said, well, your endorsement's good enough for me. Please give me their contact information. I'll send them an invite. I'd love to have them. The more the merrier. It'd be great. And so I did. They both said, yeah, we'd love to come. And so that was in April that year. I was actually going over to UK. Thank you, Scott.
Sure.
And so the watch behind us right now is their very first watch. That's the McGonigle Tourbillon. This is not the McGonigle Tourbillon. This is a McGonigle Tusker Banu. But I was going over to England to meet up with my parents in June that year. The event was in September. And I thought, well, I'm in England. Maybe I can hop over to Ireland and meet these guys. Because, at least one of them, John lives in Ireland. Stephen lives in Switzerland. I thought it'd be a good idea to meet him prior to the event. So I did. I met John, Dublin Airport, and serendipity, the universe, whatever you want to call it, that my timing was impeccable because that weekend they were delivering the very first 2 McGonigle wristwatches.
But it wasn't a Tuskar.
No, these were the tourbillons. They were Planet, yeah. And the 2 collectors, American collectors, who got these guys to build their very first watch. One of them, Tom, was there to pick up his watch and ostensibly to take the other one back to Florida to the other collector. When
you say they were there to work on the watches, what does that mean? They were there to collect the watches that they had?
Yeah, so they were doing a watchmaking tour in Switzerland several years before. And I believe they were at Renault and Papy, which is where a lot of these great watchmakers... And
I want you to expand on that, because I don't think a lot of people know what Renault Papy is. It's sort of the skunk works for Audemars Piguet, but...
It is now, yeah. It is now, but it was also... they were specialists who, did the impossible, if you will.
Everything they did. They've done Vianney Halter's... I thought they did that space watch for him. No? What am I thinking?
No, they've done a lot of stuff.
They've done a lot of the Richard Mille stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But so John was working there, and John's specialty was tourbillons and minute repeaters, and that's what they do for a lot of the big brands.
Okay.
Similar to back then, Christophe Claret, who was sort of behind the scenes doing minute repeaters, tourbillons, automatons for brands like Ulysse Nardin. And
I mean, the guy's got pinball machines inside of his watches.
Yeah,
you know?
Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So
Concepto does that crazy stuff too, for Jacob & Co.
Yeah, they do some stuff.
They do some crazy roulette wheels inside of watches. So yeah.
But so John was there. He was the English speaker on staff, if you will. So he was giving the American collectors a tour of the factory. And as the story goes, Tom and Rudy pulled him aside and said, "Have you ever thought about making a watch, John?" And he's like, "Well, I have, but it's a lot of money to develop your own watch." And so they were like, "Okay, well, I think we can help you in that area. We can help. We can front you some funds. But if you'd make us a watch, we'd be interested." And so that's how the McGonigle watch brand was born. And back then it was John and Stephen. It's no longer. They've separated. Stephen runs McGonigle watches now.
Which I just want to say, it happens so often. Mm-hmm. So many of the guys that we know have sold their souls to the devil and can't even use their own names anymore.
Right. Fortunately, that didn't happen here. They just had
I'm just going to bring this closer because I want people to see this bridge here. That's sort of the signature thing.
So this
that bridge right there.
Yeah, that claw, it's actually made of titanium that holds the balance.
See how hard it is for me to point?
I'll just point to it. Yeah. So it's right in here.
Yeah, look at that. I mean, and that is sort of
these two claws that are holding the jewel for the balance wheel. And the watch is not running right now, so you could actually see this balance wheel. It's got the eccentric weights inside it. And that finishing done on that piece of titanium is not easy to do.
No.
There's anglage and then inner angles and all
that.
No,
because it's a metal that the Vickers very high, and people it's very hard to
So this is a sort of what I might term as a semi-skeletonized watch. It's it's revealing. It's got the balance wheel in the front. So this was the first in-house McGonigle watch, because the tourbillon that they first came up with, which you showed initially, was based on a Claret Eboche.
So they bought the kit from Claret and then modified it themselves, or what? How did that?
Yeah, for the tourbillon.
Okay.
And this watch this was conceived by John and Stephen, wholly conceived by them.
Does that mean that this movement is also made in-house, or?
So they have it. Well, I believe my understanding is that the parts are made because they're made on CNC machines, which John and Stephen don't have. But they're made, Renault and Papy, the parts are made.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because of the.
They got the cutters.
Yeah, well, they've got the machines to do that.
Yeah.
And then if you're trying to do a series of watches, which is what this was made in a series, you can do it one by one, but it'll take you for a long time, and the price is astronomical.
Yeah, it's absurd. Well, I mean,
you need that precision.
That was the quintessential moment when Marty and I went to go visit Voutilainen, and we're on the second floor, and it's a whole room of Haas cutters. And I looked at him and I said, "Oh, what a fine American brand, just 45 minutes north of me that you're using in your shop."
Right, CNC.
"You're not going to use any Swiss machines here, are you?" He goes, "No, and the problem is I need 2 of each, because when one goes down, it takes 3 weeks for the Haas guy to show up." So it was nice to see some of the finest, if not the finest, watchmaking being machined by American CNC machines. I was very happy. Let's see the back of this baby.
Yeah.
Let me take this off screen here. This is really absolutely fantastic. Now, the backside is not near as skeletonized as the bottom half of the watch on the front of the dial.
Correct. And the reason being is that the main plate, you're looking at the main plate of the watch. So this has, this is supporting structural integrity here. Is supporting that watch and having the ability to have the balance wheel on the front, the bridges and the wheels. So, but in terms of the decoration, this is done by hand by a hand engraver. There's also some circular graining on it, but the hand engraving is done to a Celtic design that was designed by their sister. Frances, I believe is her name, Frances McGonigle, who designed the scroll work and the back part.
It does have a very Viking sort of Nordic sensibility.
Yeah, Celtic that's the Irish, that's the Irish history and that's what they have. The other thing I'll point out, which is kind of fun, is
get us off of here.
If we can get the crown, if you can see the crown.
Yeah, fabulous, right?
So those notches are actually from the Ogham language, which was an ancient Celtic language, and basically those sticks would have notches in them to describe something or to communicate something. So the notches, they look sort of random, and they kind of are random.
But they're not.
Well, I don't know what it actually says. I'm not sure. Stephen might be able to help us on that.
Yeah.
But that's what those notches are on the crown. Again, a nod to their history, their background, and
I gotta say, I love these. I'll call them Easter eggs, right? Because there's certain things that people take for granted, but serious collectors will really dig in to the archaeology of just what those little notches on the crown are. Mm-hmm. A good friend of ours, one of your clients and one of my longtime good friends, he had a Berthoud that I saw recently, and he was buoyed by just the fact that the hands were skeletonized so as not to obscure the dial.
Right.
And he looked at that and he went, sold. So it's these little details, especially when guys are really on the high end of collecting. It's a very high end collectible watch. And we know the gentleman who has one of these, he has a tourbillon though, right? He has
a tourbillon.
Doctor's is a tourbillon.
Well, he has that. He also has the original Tusker, this was the second generation of their in-house movement.
Oh, okay.
And that watch was made in a small series of 10 pieces. It was a white gold case, and it actually had a more skeletonized barrel bridge. So here on my watch right here, this is actually a crystal that sits above the barrel bridge. And if I follow the line of it, you may be able to see it. Let's get the pointer. So
let me get us off the screen here. Go ahead.
So along right here, and then round where.
Oh, is that another piece of crystal?
There's a sapphire crystal that has the printing of McGonigle. It has the numerals on it that sits above the blackened, I think it's black rhodium, the barrel bridge, because there's two mainsprings.
Is that why the reflection is an issue?
Yeah, because of the black.
Okay.
And you got a secondary crystal underneath.
I see.
So underneath here, you've got two mainsprings. So this watch will run for about 110 hours.
Oh, okay.
But in the original Tusker, this bridge here was opened up, and there's bars, and you can see the barrels underneath. So that was the original Tusker. So more of a technical looking watch, if you will.
But more skeletonized too.
Yeah.
More exposed.
Again, the back was pretty much the same, but that was the original series. This was the follow up. There aren't many of these in existence. There you can actually see the balance wheel.
No, and I love the detailing underneath the oscillator there.
You got perlage.
The perlage right underneath.
Yeah, I mean that.
And I really am digging now that I'm seeing it. The small seconds at 8 is so friggin' cool because look what they did. They cut it down so that.
Yeah, it's a semicircle.
Yes,
So there's two lengths. So the second hand has two lengths. One half is the short, the inner side, and the other side is long for the
And the fourth wheel is exposed, which is also so cool.
So let's do this. Let's actually
give it a little turn.
Yeah, let's have a run. So you can actually see. I hold it right.
Oh my God, it's just fantastic, isn't it? Let's just get out of the way here. So it's really great.
So there you got the second hand. So right now you've got the long side of the second hand, if you will, that's running around the outside arc. So you can, time to seconds.
So how much different is the tourbillon? Essentially the same. It's just a cage in here.
Not at all.
Very different.
Completely different construction.
Okay.
It's a different movement. This movement, there's nothing that was in this movement that's been in anywhere other watch other than the first series.
Okay.
The tourbillon is wholly different from this. And on from here, Stephen has now developed his next series of watches called the Ogma, which is a slightly different looking watch. Again, it has the beautiful, the claw holding the balance wheel, and that's where he's gone with that. So this is one of the crown jewels in my collection.
Oh,
I feel very fortunate to have this.
It's fantastic. And it's just and it's such a rare bird, Tim. I mean, you never see this, and when you do, it's instantly recognizable. So
yeah, it gets, I go to watch events and
yeah, I'm sure. Well, our friend wears his when we all get together and people are like oogling on.
Yeah.
Let's look at Vianney. I'm just going to bring Vianney up on the screen here.
Yeah, so that's the Antica Perpetual. And that's the watch.
This is the one you saw.
Well, yeah, actually, interestingly enough, so this is probably platinum with the rose gold dials. So I saw it in an inverse version of that. So the case was red gold and the dials were platinum, if that makes sense.
Yep.
But it was that watch, and I was like, holy shit.
Well, I mean, but I want people to understand what they're looking at. They're looking at a perpetual calendar.
Right. Now,
which is a mind screw, really.
Well, and traditional perpetual calendars have a single dial typically, and then they have for the time, and then they may have some other indicators on that dial. And what Vianney did, together with Barnes, who was the original co-designer of this watch, was to separate out each of the indications. So top right, you've got the time clearly.
Yeah.
Top left, you've got the day of the week. Bottom left, you've got the month going around the outside, and then on the inner part of that, you've got the 4-year cycle of years, so the leap year, first, second, third. And what you can't see in this picture is that little porthole down to the right, because it's obscured. It's almost like a tube. I don't know. Yeah, you won't even be able to scroll in. I've got pictures of it, but back there, down at the bottom, is a date. And the date disc, if you will, is at the back of the movement, so it's quite deep. Hence, you've got this tube. So if you look straight on.
But is this a magnifying?
Nope.
Just a tube? So if you look straight down the hole, you get the actual day of the month.
No, date. Yeah,
the day of the month.
Yep. Yeah. The
right.
date.
So when you look down, it's what's the watch says? It's I guess it's Saturday. What do we got? We got
Saturday. October.
October.
Yeah.
And then we can't see what's on there, but maybe the 15th.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's obscured in this photograph, but it's there.
Is it very visible?
Yeah. If you look at it straight on, you can read it, no problem.
So the other question I have about this watch is if you set it down and you stop letting it run for a while, are you screwed, or do you have pushers to move things around?
No, there are pushers around the outside of the case to
fulfill the quick change.
Quick set. Yeah.
Okay.
And it has to be done in the correct order, otherwise you can damage.
And you don't want to turn a watch backwards of this nature either. You'll break it most likely, unless it's made by Jaja LeCoultre, and then they'll figure it out. But yeah,
Ulysse Nardin does a.
They do a backwards thing.
Yeah, they did the first perpetual.
Well, because they stole it from JLC.
No.
I had to say it.
I did not.
I had to say it. Okay, so let's see what we got here. So you tell us about this one.
So that perpetual calendar was it for me, the first watch. This watch, this is called the Vianney Halter Classic, and this is the original time-only sort of simple watch that he came up with. I believe he designed this watch in around 2000, somewhere in that region, 2000, 2001. And it's, it has the same style. You can see the same sort of porthole style. It's, Jules Verne-esque. It's
yeah, and that's the other thing, is it very Mariner. It strikes me as a mariner's watch for some reason.
Right. I mean, it's
very inspired by
these rivets around the bezel, and there's rivets on the end of the lugs. There's rivets on the clasp.
Yeah, I mean, the guy read a lot of Jules Verne. It seems to me. Yeah.
It's steampunk. It's
it's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It's all that stuff. Yeah.
But the detail work in Vianney's cases, and the Antica Perpetual to me is the ultimate test or ultimate example of that. This is a more simplified version, but still there's an inordinate amount of work that goes into making this.
And I just want to talk about DNA real quick. I just wanted to point out, notice at the top and the bottom of the watch are these, I don't know what you call them, but they're here as well, these scallops.
So the lug is attached to the case, so it's a separate element, if you will. And it's a regular spring bar inside of here, and then that sort of half moon holds the strap in place. It gives it some strength. That's on the Antica Perpetual as well. But just that crown alone, those rivets are placed on the tube from the inside rose gold, and then the separate center section, which is white gold, if you can see it back here, is then threaded through to hold those rivets.
Wow, that's a lot of work right there. So Vianney's also got a lot of metallurgy behind him. It seems to me.
He's off the chain, and then
he's the whole package.
And then look at the dial. So those numerals, they're actually hand engraved into the metal and then filled in with a black lacquer.
Which is interesting to me because you've chosen a watch with Arabic numbers, and I know you're a Roman numeral guy.
Right. Well, he didn't do this in Romans.
No, and he didn't do it here. He didn't do it on. He didn't do it on the perpetual either. So is this a typical thing of Vianney's to stay away from Romans?
Yeah, that's his style.
That's his signature.
So if you're one of his watches, you get what you get. You know.
Well, we have to talk about DNA. I mean, again those half moons at the top and the 12 and 6. Those are very, very important to his. And let's look at the back. And now there's something very special about Vianney's winder too, which if you can see, Tim is moving the watch back and forth, and the winder is actually around the perimeter of the movement. I think he calls it a mystery winder, doesn't he? Is it
mystery rotor?
Mystery rotor.
Yeah. So
notice that as Tim is twisting the watch back and forth, the rotor around the perimeter of the watch is turning. So that's typical. It's not typical of a watch with an automatic winder. The rotor usually covers the movement.
Correct.
But he wanted to show off the movement. And he's got these nice Geneva striping decorations. So you go ahead. You take it.
Yeah. So, I mean, what you have, and he actually patented this in the Antica Perpetual, because the Antica Perpetual has the same mystery rotor.
This rotor is patented.
Yeah. So he patented it. Now, what it is, so it appears to be a peripheral rotor. So there are a couple other brands that have done peripheral rotors over the years. Who comes to mind? Buchera did one.
Perret comes to mind.
Yeah, they've done some funny. Vacheron recently.
Vacheron, yeah.
But that's different, because what you have here, and it's difficult to see, almost impossible to see, is that the outside disc, if you will, is actually connected by a piece of another sapphire crystal disc that sits between it and the center. So right now, the rotor is attached to that center pin.
But it's clear
sapphire. And because it has the same refractive index as the sapphire,
it's a mystery.
You can't see it.
Yeah. So it's a kind of a Jaeger-LeCoultre throwback to the mystery dial.
Yeah, but it's not, it's not a peripheral rotor. It's a
full
center rotor, but you can see the movement, and the movement finishing is done beautifully.
Oh, you just gave me a chill, Jackson.
Yeah. Well,
oh my goodness, that's hot.
Yeah, this is a cool watch.
Yeah.
250 of these were ever made.
What number?
I think it's 115, 113. Yeah, and so in the rose gold case, there's 115. These are numbers I've gotten from Vianney. The most rare version of this watch actually is yellow gold. There are only 34 of those made in yellow gold.
And in platinum?
None in platinum, to my knowledge. Mm-hmm. White gold was the other case. So you got a white gold case with the same white dial, silver dial. You also had a white gold with a rose gold dial, which is sort of the inverse of this, which is I think is lovely. Sold a few of those, and then probably the most rare actually would be a white gold case with a yellow dial. I've actually seen one of those.
So he's not doing it any stainless. It's all nobles.
No, the original, the series of 250 watches, and it took him about 10 years to build all of these. And
I know somebody else who complains about how long his watches take.
Right. The very first watch I sold was, I think, in 2003 to a collector in Silicon Valley, and he bought this model, if you will, same setup, and then a couple of years later he said, I think I'd like to have the inverse. I'd like to have a white gold one with a red dial. So he has had two of them. But this is the Vianney Halter Classic. He subsequently has made a time-only steel and titanium watch, but it's a different watch. It's a different movement. The movement was developed by a good friend of his, Andreas Strehler, who's a genius watchmaker. He's a constructor. He is, again, another one of these guys behind the scenes that's done work for a lot of people. It's a
name really nobody knows unless you're in the know. Those who know, but Professor Strehler is just on another level. I mean,
he is.
And one day we'll do another show. We'll talk about him.
Yep.
But what a impressive guy. and everything's got this sort of butterfly DNA about it. But let's not digress. Let's stay on point because we're coming up on an hour, so we got one more watch to talk about. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, well, this is hopefully it's of interest.
You're awesome. So I'm going to talk about a watch here, International Watch Company. This is a beautiful watch that Tim has here. Basically, I just want to say a little bit about this company. This company was actually founded by an American, which a lot of people don't realize. Florentine Ariosto Jones, F.A. Jones. And real quick, he wanted to start a watch company after World War I, but there were no watchmakers here. Mm-hmm. So he went to Switzerland, found a town with a big river, talked some guy into putting up a big wheel so that they could make power. And then he started IWC. And the best part of the story is during the Second World War, Americans thought it was a bomb-making factory, and they friggin' bombed it. And when Roosevelt found out that it was an American, he sent the Army Corps of Engineers in there to rebuild the factory. Okay, with that
I didn't know.
It's a great little story. I'll let you take it away over here. We're going to go and look at this watch here.
Yeah, so I mean, IWC is for me anyway, it's a wonderful brand. I represented them for many years in a store in Silicon Valley, and I've owned several of their watches over the years, and I've had the Pilot chronograph, a classic 35. 37.
Let me jump in. The company is actually, their DNA is based on Pilot watches.
Yep.
And a lot of people will look at that and say, wow, that crown is so big, and they'll ask why. And if you think about it, the original airmen had these huge gloves on, and that was the only way they could wind it. So But this is a dress watch, a little departure from it.
Yeah, so this is a piece that I just love. It's yellow gold. It's probably I haven't dated it exactly, but my knowledge tells me it's probably from the 50s, late 50s. But what I love about it is, it's got a clean original silver dial. It's got the the battens which are beautifully polished. The hands are original. The dial is, pretty remarkable. It's remained in really good condition.
Yeah, it's fantastic for a watch that's 50, 60 years old.
Yeah, almost coming on 70, I guess. 60 years old. But anyway, but check this out. What got me are these lugs.
Those are what we call those teardrops?
I mean, yeah, they're you could call them teardrop. This is not just your plain Jane wristwatch. And where I got it, I bought it from a dealer friend of mine, and he had it on a rather unattractive, to my taste, mesh bracelet.
Did it match though? Was it the gold match?
Yeah, it was yellow gold. Yeah, sure, it matched.
Was it the original bracelet?
No, not original. And it was attached with spring bars. And when I looked at the watch, I thought, there's a beautiful watch, but kind of sitting on an ugly bracelet. So I convinced him that I might be interested in the watch if I could get the bracelet off, if he would be willing to sell me the watch, the head, if you will, without the bracelet. And, he's been I've known him for a long time, for almost 25 years. I've done a lot of business, and he's like, sure, we can take the bracelet off. So it took a little bit of a while, and we got the bracelet off, and he figured out what the gold weight of the bracelet. The good news is the gold price has gone, astronomical. So the gold bracelet added up to a fair amount of money. So he was able to take that off the price of the watch, and we put a deal together.
What, did he slap that bracelet on another watch?
No idea. Maybe. It could well be on another watch at this point. There are some people that like those, just not for my taste.
I like this blue strap you have on there. It's really tops the watch.
It's fun. It's an El Cheapo strap, quite frankly.
But it looks expensive. It's got the big alligator.
It's a print. It's not even. I don't even think it's a real.
Yeah, I know. It looks good.
Yeah, it's genuine leather.
Who is that? The brand? Genuine leather.
Yeah. So it's an 18 millimeter, lug width, and it's a wonderful dress watch. And I have a few dress watches. I don't, up until having this watch, I didn't have an IWC in my collection. I'd sold the other ones, and I liked it. These lugs are what do it for me. So I just thought I'd bring a watch along today that isn't, an artisanal independent, but it's, I do like watches made by, good quality watchmakers that are the brands. Today, the watch world is a big business for the big brands, and that's something that, another day we can talk about that. But
we can, but I got to say, this guy has brought me along into the world of independence, as he has with so many others. If you're a watch collector and you really love watchmaking and the artisanal part of it, I encourage you to look up guys like Kari Voutilainen, Vianney Halter, McGonigle, Ludovic Ballard, Kudoke. These are guys who are literally working in the actual tradition of watchmaking. They're only making, I guess Vianney can only make about 35, 40 watches a year.
Not even that right now.
No, and Kari can barely crack 50 probably.
Yeah.
But these guys who are doing the high-end work, you can look at a company like Grubel Forzi and you can see they've got 19 employees who are third-generation artisan. Mm-hmm. And that's what's going on. You look at a watch like this, and the enamel dial work on here, you can see that the dial hasn't faded.
Right. And that's a watch that's probably 120 years old.
At least.
130 years old.
At least. And it probably keeps perfect time.
Yeah.
So, anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
I think we've done a lot of talking, so.
Give me a bump.
Scott, thank you. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Tim Jackson, independentintime.com. Go to the website, check out all the goodies he's got.
Also, Instagram,
Twitter,
I don't tweet.
Facebook. You don't tweet?
Don't Facebook. No.
You don't Facebook, just Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram is, that's where you get to see a lot.
But you're going to see this on TikTok and on YouTube and on Facebook and on everything that I can post it on. Tim Jackson, a pleasure.
Scott, thank you. Really.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time.
Cheers.